Shalom. This week we are reading Parashat Va'era, and you know it's really all about how does Hashem run the world. Here we read, God spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Hashem. I appeared to Avraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov as El Shaddai, but my name Hashem, I did not make myself known to them. So here Hashem is telling us that this is like a new identity which he is sharing with Moshe. He did not make himself known to the Avot, to the forefathers as Hashem, but only as El Shaddai. And we know that this is a reference to one of the great mysteries of the Torah, the identity of God. And the various names that the Torah shares with us are the ways in which the Holy One, blessed be He, broadcasts His identity and relates to the entire universe. And what is really the difference between these two names, El Shaddai and Hashem? The name Shaddai is an aspect of what is called tzimtzum, contraction, or limitation. It's like the famous teaching of our sages in Tractate Chagiga, blessed is he who said to his world, die, enough. Shaddai, that he said to his world, the Hebrew word die, this is enough, until here. Our sages explain that at the time of creation, when God brought forth all of existence and created the world, the heavens were expanding and continuing without a limit, endlessly expanding, until the Holy One, blessed be He, said to His world, stop here. This is the border. So this name, Shaddai, is an aspect of order, of control, of limits, of everything in this world working within a certain natural order, the parameters and the laws of nature, everything that can be anticipated as well as expected. And this is the way that God really manifested Himself, He's telling Moshe, at the time of the forefathers, with that name of limitation. Everything according to the natural order of things. This is the meaning of the concept that He didn't make Himself known to them as Hashem. We don't find this supernatural type of orchestration of world events which is alluded to by the name of Hashem in God's dealing with the Avot, with the forefathers. But Torah is teaching us that when it comes to the whole concept of the Exodus from Egypt, this was a revelation of God's stewardship of the world in a way of supernature, above all order and beyond all limits, because the whole concept of the Exodus from Egypt is that God broke the bank of nature, and He went against all His own rules, above all order. It's all a question of how Hashem is running the world. And what Hashem is really telling Moshe here is introducing this new side of His identity into the world. There's something new going on here. There was no necessity in those earlier days of manifesting this type of conduct, but our sages are teaching us that the Exodus from Egypt could not have happened because any sort of natural scheduling would not have worked out. According to the timeline, the Exodus should not have happened, should not have occurred until 400 years had been completed, but that time had not yet arrived. And how could it have come about earlier when we find, there is a scenario of Achishena. We are taught that, according to the verse in Isaiah, that God could bring forth the time of redemption earlier if we are found to be meriting that. However, the Israelites were stranded on the 49th level of impurity, and therefore God had to reveal Himself as Hashem, meaning there are no rules here. There are no limits. There's no order. It's actually alluded to by a beautiful verse in the Song of Songs. It says, the voice of my beloved comes, jumping over the mountains and skipping over the hills. And our sages compare this with a parable to the story of a king who went out dressed in his royal robes, and he sees that his little son fell into a filthy pit. And the king, instead of waiting for someone to come and rescue the boy, he himself just put all pomp and circumstance aside, and without any sort of concern about convention, he himself descended into the filthy pit in his royal clothing to personally rescue his son. So too, just like the king who didn't wait, the Holy One, blessed be he, saw that his children were in danger in Egypt and swooped down, as it were, to rescue them himself without any consideration whatsoever of any sort of convention or rules. All of this, actually, this whole hanhaga, this whole idea of God's stewardship of the world beyond all rules or expectations, it was all alluded to from the very beginning, from what could be called Moshe's first encounter with God at the burning bush, because there the concept of the burning bush really alludes to God's love for Israel, which is so totally consuming even when they themselves are burning with the impurity of Egypt. God's love for Israel knows no bounds. And this is actually also an allusion to the whole concept of all the signs and wonders that we learn about, which God did for the children of Israel at the time of the Exodus. He could certainly have redeemed them in a natural way without any sort of miracles, any sort of the plagues and all of the special aspects of the total abrogation of natural law that we find at the time of the Exodus. But here too, these things manifest this aspect of God's running the world above the rules for the sake of his people Israel, to show them his limitless love. And we know, of course, that the future redemption, the redemption which is, we believe, upon us, we know that our sages tell us that the miracles of the Exodus from Egypt will pale in comparison to the ultimate and complete redemption. May we merit that very soon. And we know that God's limitless love for Israel, which breaks all the rules, is still upon us. And we know that the redemption, which we anticipate, will be an even greater manifestation of God's declaration to Moshe, I am Hashem.